After my C-section, I was barely awake when my husband's sister took my newborn and said, "He deserves a better mother." I crawled down the hall begging, but my mill blocked the door and whispered, "You're just a vessel." When I vanished for 3 days, they panicked because I never thought this would be my life. I didn't grow up dreaming of revenge. I dreamed of peace. A home. A family. I just wanted to be a good wife and a mother. But what happened after I gave birth to my son changed me forever. They didn't just cross the line. They lit it on fire, then laughed while I crawled through the smoke. Let me start from the beginning. I'm 32. I live just outside Charleston, South Carolina. I met my husband Eric when I was 25. We met through mutual friends, dated for 2 years, married for 4. He's calm. Cold sometimes. But I thought it was just how he was raised. His family was always strange. His mom, Doreen, always had a way of making me feel small. She smiled a lot, said polite things, but behind her eyes there was nothing warm. She'd give me advice like, "Keep your voice sweet so he comes home to peace." Or, "Men don't like women who cry too much." I thought she was just old-fashioned. Then there was Colleen, his sister. Colleen treated Eric like her personal trophy. She acted like no woman would ever be good enough for her brother. She criticized my clothes, the way I talked, the food I cooked. When I announced my pregnancy, she actually said, "Wow. I thought you were smarter than that." I laughed it off. Tried to keep the peace. Eric said she was just protective. When I was about 6 months pregnant, I started to feel like something was off. Eric got distant. Not abusive, not cruel, just colder. He stopped asking how I was feeling. Started spending more time with his mom and sister than with me. I blamed the stress. At 37 weeks, I was told I needed a C-section. My blood pressure was dangerously high. I remember crying in the doctor's office. I was scared. Eric just nodded and said, "Whatever the doctor thinks is best." He didn't hold my hand. Didn't hug me. The day of the surgery, Eric was there in the OR. He held my hand during the operation, but he didn't look at me. He kept watching the curtain, like he was waiting for something. When they pulled my baby out, I heard his cry, and I cried too. I reached for him, but they said I needed to rest. That they'd bring him to me later. That later never came. When I woke up in the recovery room, my baby was gone. The nurse said he was with family in the nursery. I tried to sit up, but I was weak. My incision burned. My head felt like it was full of rocks. I asked where Eric was. She said he had stepped out. Hours passed. No one brought me my son. I started to panic. When I tried to get up, the pain almost made me pass out, but I forced myself anyway. I wrapped a hospital blanket around myself and stumbled out into the hallway. I held the wall to stay up. Every step hurt. I started calling out, "Where's my baby?" Then I heard Colleen's voice behind a half-closed door. "He deserves a better mother. She won't even know he's gone until tomorrow." I froze. Then Doreen's voice. "She's weak. She's just a vessel. He's not really hers. He belongs with us." I pushed the door open. They were standing in the hallway just outside the nursery. I couldn't see my son, but I saw Colleen's arms moving like she was holding him. I tried to speak. My throat was dry. I whispered, "Give me my baby." Doreen turned and stepped in front of the door. "Go back to bed," she said, her voice low. "You're confused. You're scaring him." I started crying. I begged. "Please. Please, he's mine. Please let me hold him." "You were just the vessel," she said again, her voice like a blade. "You did your part. Now go." Then Colleen turned her back and walked into the nursery with him. I tried to push past Doreen, but I was too weak. I collapsed to the floor. The pain shot through me like fire. I remember screaming. I remember a nurse running toward me. I don't remember what happened after that. When I woke up again, I was back in a hospital bed. A new nurse was checking my for. She looked concerned. "Where's my baby?" I asked. She hesitated. "Your husband and his family took him. They said you signed paperwork to release him to them temporarily while you recovered." I started shaking. "That's not true. I never signed anything." The nurse looked worried. She called the on-call doctor. He came in, looked at my file, then looked confused. "These signatures look odd," he said. "And there's no psych consult. Why did they approve a maternal separation?" I told them everything. The nurse's hands shook as she took notes. She said she was going to call someone in the legal department. Then she whispered something I'll never forget. "Get out of here. Don't tell them where you're going. Don't wait for the system to fix this. Go now. So I left. I didn't tell anyone. I grabbed my bag. I called a cab and went straight to my cousin Molly's place in Greenville. She's a lawyer. And she's mean in all the right ways. I showed up at her door, crying and shaking, and told her everything. She didn't comfort me. She stood up, got her laptop, and said, "Let's end them." Within 6 hours, she filed an emergency order to block any custody changes and started digging into the hospital records. She had a contact at the hospital's legal department. They pulled the video footage. It showed Colleen pushing the baby's bassinet down the hallway. Smiling. Waving at nurses like she was the mother. Eric was in another clip, signing forms with Doreen standing next to him. My signature, fake, was already on the documents. That was the second day. Eric called me 12 times. Left 6 voicemails. "Where are you? This is insane. You're going to get people in trouble for no reason. Let's talk." I didn't answer. I wanted him to sweat. On the third day, I showed up at my house with 2 cops and a court order. Doreen answered the door. She looked shocked, but not scared. She said, "He's sleeping. You're going to wake him." I stepped in anyway. The cops followed. I went straight to the nursery. Colleen was in the rocking chair, holding my baby, rocking him like he was hers. She looked at me with this weird pity in her eyes. "He's better off like this," she said. "You were always too soft." I didn't say a word. I just held out my arms. She refused to hand him over. The cops had to physically take him. When I held him, I fell to my knees. I cried until I couldn't breathe. He was okay. He was warm. He smelled like powder and milk. I held him so tight I thought I'd never let go. But this wasn't over. Not even close. Molly filed kidnapping charges. Fraud. False medical consent. We submitted the hospital footage and messages from Eric's phone, which showed him texting Colleen. "Just get him out before she wakes up." They panicked. Eric lawyered up fast. Claimed he thought I agreed. That I was confused. That he was just trying to help. Too late. Colleen lost her nursing license. Doreen was arrested and released on bail. Eric was charged with conspiracy and endangerment. Family court granted me full custody. Eric was restricted from contact. I got a protective order. I didn't disappear because I was scared. I disappeared so I could come back swinging. And I wasn't done yet. After I got my son back, everyone around me thought that was it. That the worst was over. That I could just move on, raise my baby, and forget all the horror they put me through. They were wrong. Eric wasn't done. And neither was his family. A week after the court hearing, I started getting letters. Not official ones, no stamps or postmarks. Just plain white envelopes left in my mailbox or slipped under my front door. The handwriting was tight, clean, almost too careful. The first one said, "He'll grow up hating you." No signature. No return address. The second said, "You'll never be enough. He'll know that when he's old enough to understand what you did." By the third letter, I called Molly. "They're harassing you," she said. "They're trying to scare you. We can file another restraining order." But even Molly didn't know how deep it was going to get. That same week, I got a call from DSS, Department of Social Services. They said they received an anonymous report claiming I was abusing my son. That he was malnourished and living in filthy conditions. I nearly dropped the phone. The caseworker came by. I welcomed her in. The house was spotless. My son was healthy, clean, and smiling. She apologized, said she was just doing her job, but I saw the sadness in her face. She'd seen this before, false reports from bitter family members. They knew exactly what to say. She said softly, "Whoever called in knows the system well." Of course they did. Doreen used to work in the hospital's admin department. Colleen was a pediatric nurse. They knew what buttons to press. I started sleeping with my phone under my pillow and a baby monitor clutched in my hand. Every time a car slowed down outside, my chest tightened. Every knock at the door felt like another ambush. Then, one night it got worse. I woke up around 2 a.m. because the baby monitor made a strange crackling noise. Not the usual static, something sharper. I checked the camera feed. Everything looked normal. But when I turned off the monitor, I heard it again. Footsteps. Soft ones. On my back porch. I grabbed my phone and called 911. The operator stayed on the line with me while I looked through the blinds. Someone was standing at the edge of the porch. A hood pulled low. They didn't move for a long time. Then, just as the police pulled into the driveway, the person turned and ran into the woods behind my house. The cops searched, found boot prints, and a partially burned envelope under the porch. The smell of gasoline still clung to it. Inside, the letter was wet but still readable. You took him back. But we're not going away. That night, I moved into a hotel with my baby. I didn't even tell Molly where I was staying. I needed time to think, to plan. It was then I decided I wasn't going to keep defending myself. I was going to go on offense. Through Molly's connections, we hired a private investigator, Rick. Ex-military, didn't smile much, but he was smart and didn't waste time. Within 2 weeks, he traced the letters to a P.O. box rented under a fake name, Mary Collins. A common trick. But the security footage told the truth. Doreen. Clear as day, wearing a scarf and sunglasses like she was in a bad spy movie. Then came the bombshell. Rick found that Colleen had applied for emergency guardianship of my son in another county, pretending to be his mother. She'd filed it quietly, using a forged birth certificate and claiming I was missing and unfit. It had gotten held up in court due to clerical errors, or else I wouldn't have even known it existed. If that had gone through, they could have taken him again. That was the moment I stopped waiting for justice. I started planning for war. I made copies of everything. Every letter. Every message. Every photo and video. I created a full digital record. And then I started leaking it, first to DSS, then to the hospital's HR department, then to every legal authority connected to our case. Molly filed for a permanent no-contact order, not just for Eric, but for Doreen and Colleen too. She petitioned the court to open a criminal investigation into the forged guardianship claim. But I knew they wouldn't go quietly. Eric showed up to the courthouse with a new lawyer and a suit 2 sizes too small. He cried in front of the judge. Said he missed his son. Said he had made mistakes, but just wanted to co-parent in peace. I didn't flinch. My son was in the courtroom that day, asleep in his stroller. When Eric looked at him, I swear something in his face shifted. Not love. Not regret. Hunger. Like he still believed my son belonged to him more than to me. The judge denied his motion. Outside the courtroom, Doreen was waiting. She wasn't even supposed to be there. She smiled at me, cold and thin. You're not going to win, she whispered. Boys need real family. He'll come back to us. One way or another. I just stared at her. I didn't say a word. Because I wasn't finished yet. And the next part of my plan? That's when things really started to fall apart, for them. After the courtroom showdown, I thought they might back off. I was wrong. 2 weeks after the judge denied Eric's motion, I got a knock on the door at 7 a.m. I was half awake, baby on my hip, bottle in hand. A woman in plain clothes flashed a badge, Charleston County Sheriff's Office. We have a warrant to search the premises, she said. I froze. For what? Anonymous tip about illegal prescription drug use and child endangerment. I almost laughed. But my hands were shaking. They came in. Opened every drawer. Looked under the crib. Took photos of my fridge, my medicine cabinet, my trash. I stood there in my pajamas, heart pounding, while a stranger took pictures of my baby's formula cans and diaper supplies. They didn't find anything, obviously. No drugs. No signs of neglect. One officer even apologized before he left. I didn't even have time to process before my phone buzzed with a new email. The subject line said, Anonymous Report Summary, Charleston Memorial Hospital. Someone, probably Colleen, had submitted a formal complaint to the hospital board claiming I had abused staff, threatened violence, and smuggled narcotics during my C-section stay. It was complete fiction. But it forced the hospital to start a review. Again. Molly told me. They're trying to create a paper trail to make you look unstable. They're playing the long game. I knew then, I had to hit them somewhere they didn't expect. Rick, our PI, had been digging into their finances. I hadn't asked him to. He just had a hunch. And what he found? That's when everything started unraveling. Turns out, Doreen had helped Colleen set up a fake trust fund using my son's name, before he was even born. It was in some backwater credit union in Somerville. The account was created with forged documents, listing Colleen as the guardian. They had planned this for months. The trust had deposits totaling nearly $14,000. Most of it came from Eric's accounts, and some from Doreen's, but some entries were marked as personal reimbursements, with vague notes like infant care and vessel support. I felt like throwing up. I gave the records to Molly. She went straight to the state attorney's office. But that wasn't even the worst part. A week later, Rick sent me a video. It was from a home security camera belonging to one of my neighbors 2 houses down. It showed Colleen's car parked across the street. Same day I'd been raided by police. Same time. She sat in the car for over an hour, holding her phone up toward my house. Then she got out, walked across the street, and put something in my mailbox. That same mailbox I'd found those threatening letters in. Molly took the footage to the judge. We filed for criminal stalking charges. We also sent it to her nursing board again. This time, they opened a formal ethics investigation. Her license was officially suspended. Eric, meanwhile, kept posting things on social media, cryptic posts, fishing for sympathy. Some people don't deserve forgiveness, even when they're the mother of your child. He was trying to play the grieving dad. His friends and coworkers started messaging me, asking if I'd really blocked him from his son. One even said, "He's depressed. He misses being a dad." I sent that person a PDF of the court order and screenshots of the forged hospital release. Never heard from them again. But then came the final twist I didn't see coming. One of Eric's old coworkers, a guy named Dean, messaged me anonymously. Said he used to work with Eric at an IT firm before Eric got laid off last year. He said Eric had been talking for months about taking custody no matter what. And that Colleen had bragged about fixing things for him. Dean sent me something else, too. A voicemail. It was from Eric, left on Dean's phone a month before my C-section. In the message, Eric said, "She's not going to be in any shape to fight. They'll let me take him home. Colleen's got the forms ready. Mom's already got the room set up." That was a month before my son was born. They planned to steal him before he ever took his first breath. That was all I needed to hear. But I still wasn't done. Because if they wanted to take everything from me, I was going to make sure they ended up with nothing. I sat with that voicemail playing over and over again in my head. Eric's voice, calm and smug, planning how to take my baby while I lay cut open on a hospital bed. It broke something in me. But it also gave me the final piece I needed. Molly took the voicemail and added it to the growing file, over 200 pages of lies, forged documents, fake reports, surveillance, and stalking. She called it the custody heist case. It looked more like a criminal investigation than a family dispute. And she had just one message for me. It's time to bury them. We started with the hospital. We filed a formal lawsuit against them for releasing my son without proper consent and failing to verify my mental capacity or signature. Turns out, the staff involved had already been disciplined. But this lawsuit? It made it public. The hospital panicked. Settled fast. I signed the agreement, and just like that, a 6-figure sum was wired into an account under my name only. That money wasn't about getting rich. It was about having the means to fight back harder. Then came Eric. We presented all the evidence to the prosecutor. The forged documents. The trust fund. The voicemail. They hit him with charges for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, fraud, endangerment of a minor, and obstruction. They offered him a deal. Plead guilty, give a full confession, and maybe he'd avoid serious jail time. He refused. At the trial, he sat there in his cheap suit, fidgeting with his fingers while Molly laid everything out. She didn't pull punches. This man saw his wife in pain and decided it was the perfect time to steal her child. Eric tried to look remorseful. But when the voicemail played in the courtroom, even the jury looked disgusted. The judge didn't hide his feelings either. Eric was sentenced to 5 years in prison, with no early release for at least 3. The court also stripped him of all parental rights permanently. Not supervised visits. Not joint custody. Nothing. The judge said word for word. You used her body to get what you wanted. That child is not a prize. He is a person. And you do not deserve him. But it didn't end there. Colleen was next. Her nursing license was permanently revoked. But she wasn't just dealing with that. She was charged with fraud, forgery, and identity theft for submitting that fake guardianship paperwork. During her trial, she acted smug, right until the prosecutor revealed she'd also used hospital systems to access my records without permission. That added a federal charge for HIPAA violation. She cried then. She got sentenced to 18 months in jail and 5 years probation. But the worst was yet to come for Doreen. Because of her forged documents and harassment campaign. Including the letters, the porch stalking, and the trust fund fraud, she was charged too. Her age didn't save her. When Rick testified about the fake trust fund and her threats on camera, she looked stunned. Like she never thought she'd actually face consequences. She was found guilty of conspiracy and financial fraud. Sentenced to a year in jail, and had all her retirement savings seized to cover damages. Her home? Seized. Her car? Gone. Her credit? Wrecked. They lost everything. Their reputations. their careers, their money, and any hope of ever seeing my son again. And me? I didn't come out perfect. Truth is, I lost friends over this. Some people thought I was too extreme. Some believed Eric's lies. A few even told me I should have just let him be a dad. I stopped talking to a lot of people. I had to go to therapy for months. For the trauma, the paranoia, the rage. I still sleep with the baby monitor on high. I still check the locks 3 times. But I'm not scared anymore. I'm angry. And I've turned that anger into something sharp, something that protects me and my son like a wall no one can climb. He's almost a year old now. Walking. Laughing. Saying, "Mama." He doesn't know what happened to him yet. He doesn't know what was almost taken from him. But one day, when he's old enough to understand, I'll tell him. I'll tell him his mother wasn't just a vessel. She was a fighter. And she never stopped until everyone who tried to take him was crushed under the weight of their own lies.